How do you do, ladies and nerds? Welcome back to another lovely video here. In today's video, we're at C2E2 2025. So let's take a yonder inside and see what it has to offer. C2E2, for those that don't know, is a giant convention that happens every single year, and it focuses on video games, movies, anime, manga, comic books, anything that's pop culture related, you can find it here. And so I've had the chance to go in the past, maybe now 5 to 6 times to C2E2, and it's always an amazing time. Sometimes I go there for the special celebrity guests that appear, get my stuff autographed. Other times I go there just to walk around and see the different artists that display their posters and artwork out for you to buy. Whereas most times I'm usually just taking pictures with all the different cosplayers at the convention. Either way, this video here will show you exactly what C2E2 2025 was like for me and my adventure as I enjoyed these 3 days of this event. So day 1 started with me arriving by the bus right alongside the action at McCormick Place. This building here is ginormous, and right from the outside you can see people walking in already in costumes. And here's a fun fact. Last year at C2E2 2024, my friends and I did a trivia panel and we won first place, which gave us C2E2 2025 tickets for all 3 days, and we couldn't be more excited. It's kind of crazy to realize that 1 year has already gone by, but aside from some technical difficulties, actually getting our information emailed from the people who did this trivia, everything at will call and picking up our badges was pretty smooth. And something that, they luckily brought back this year is the lanyards, right? Usually for C2E2, they have these like fancy, nice lanyards. In the previous years, I've had some for Final Fantasy, online, and they're always nice to have just like either hanging around on my backpack or just to have around your neck. Whereas last year, it was just like a black string. There was no art on it or anything. And a lot of people felt ripped off, especially when they were selling official C2E2 lanyards for like $10. And every single year, it seems C2E2 has like a different theme. So this year's theme seemed to be a Western cowboy kind of thing going on. The badge also reminds you to activate the C2E2 app, which is extremely useful. It has different event schedules, it's got panel information, it's got artist lists, and also has a giant map of this entire convention. The only problem I had with this was the GPS feature didn't seem to work. Every time I wanted to find a specific table, it always thought I was outside of the convention, which was really weird. Not only that, but the security itself seemed to go a lot smoother than previous years. I had a backpack on me at all times with either my camera gear or some of my clothes. Usually, they have you go to the side and they open your backpack and look inside it. Whereas now, all you had to do was walk right through the metal detectors, and everything went smoothly, which was very convenient. And so from the footage here you're seeing, this was about maybe 10 minutes before the event officially opened. And you can see the amount of people just waiting here in lines right after they got past the security. And then right when 10 o'clock hit, there was music started playing and people were walking in, getting ready for their booths and just having an awesome time. Right between the security and the entrance to C2E2, there's like a main corridor section where cosplayers usually like to hang out and take pictures with one another. This is also the area where a lot of fans like to meet up in groups. So for example, there was a One Piece meetup and a Legend of Zelda meetup that I really wanted to go to. And even though I was a little bit confused at finding this location, I did eventually actually find these people here, and I was actually able to get some footage of them as they were just doing their thing. And while I was, walking around, I found this amazing Beetle cosplayer from The Legend of Zelda, and I had to stop them for a picture. The amount of detail on this person's backpack alone is insane. And it turns out that her husband, who was dressed as Link, helped her with this outfit too, which was really cool to see. Not only that, but after the picture, she gave me this little tiny mushroom. And it's stuff like that that I love, right? Not only do these cosplayers spend so much time creating their outfits and costumes, but then they go that extra mile with little kind of like character specific items and do this for fans. It's stuff like that that, makes them stand out and makes these C2E2 events memorable. And not only that, right here is also the giant C2E2 sign ready for you to take a picture. And at this point, it's kind of tradition. Every time you go to C2E2, you have to get at least one picture in front of this awesome sign. And so the easiest way to explain actually going to C2E2 is kind of like sensory overload. Everything is exploding and happening at the same time. There's so much noise going on. There's so many things to see, and it's all happening in the best way. So you have booths everywhere. Things like AMC was there, cosplayers roaming around, and you can find anything, right? Homemade leather bags, Lego figurines, giant robot suits, D&D stuff, movie merch, and even comics. There were so many comics there to be found. Unfortunately, I'm not really a fan of comics, but I did find some Sonic the Hedgehog stuff, even though it was $30 just for one comic, which is quite expensive, so I didn't get anything while I was there. There's also this little like tiny Japanese market where you can get little snacks. In front of it, there was like a giant Eevee and Pikachu like mascot just kind of standing there. And in one of those days, I think there was a Snorlax there too. And I remember seeing Pikachu full on like attacking Snorlax, and they were having their own like little battle going on. There was people gathering around this, and it was kind of funny just to see. You also have plushes everywhere you go. You got Pokemon, you got Sonic, you got Zelda. I really wanted this Tingle plush, but it was a little bit expensive, so I wanted to wait until the last day to pick it up. There was blankets, body pillows, backpacks, everything. They even had the DeLorean from Back to the Future out on display. So if you wanted a picture inside the DeLorean, you had to pay maybe like $50 or something, and then you can have that right there. There are also dedicated areas like a huge section for playing card games and D&D, as well as my boys at Galloping Ghosts. They brought an entire like thing of their arcades to C2E2, which is awesome. I went to Galloping Ghosts many years ago on my birthday, and it was one of the craziest things I've ever gone to. It's like a giant like building. You pay once, I don't know if it was like $15 or $20, and you can play every single arcade at that location for the entire day. You don't have to put any quarters in or anything, you just pay once and you're in, and it was awesome. Unfortunately, that footage is on a hard drive right now that failed on me, so unless I can somehow figure out how to fix that, I don't have any footage of myself playing at this arcade all those years ago, which makes me very sad. There was also figurines all over the place, ranging from $50 to thousands. Depending on the detail and scale, you can get all kinds of stuff from Sailor Moon, Hatsune Miku, One Piece, Gundam. They had so many Gundam sets. I was tempted to pick one up, but not for $50 though. But I've always wanted to build one, just have all those little pieces and create a Gundam figurine myself. If I had the money and the space though, I would buy so many of these different things from this one booth here. Another big draw of going to C2E2 is the celebrity guests that you get to see. And so for example, I think it was last year, the voice actors for Powerpuff Girls were there. All three of them, as well as Mojo Jojo. Not only that, but I remember Gandhi Tarkovsky was also there, the creator behind Samurai Jack, Dexter's Lab, and those classic, old cartoons that I grew up watching. I also got a chance to meet Svengoolie and have him autograph my little book here, one of the creators behind Ren and Stimpy, as well as an artist who worked on Invader Zim, and stuff like that you get to see all the time, which is awesome. Sometimes you can have a free picture or autograph, but many times, depending on the celebrity themselves, you'd have to pay anywhere from $50 to $200 to even more dollars just to have this like meetup for a few seconds with this person. Not only that, but there was also an entire section dedicated to LARPing. They gave you these foam swords and shields, and you were able to just go wild and go crazy. They even brought back this giant alien statue right here. This time though, you had to pay for a picture, whereas I think last year I just asked somebody to take a picture of me in front of it instead. And they had all kinds of displays like this all over the place. One of them was this giant treasure chest mimic. You can get a picture of it while you're inside its mouth. There's also this giant skeleton which had like these animated eyes that would kind of like follow you and blink. And of course the Tower of Shirts, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's just an entire giant pile of shirts and hoodies and hats Anything you can think of overly priced though, but they probably have it here at this place. And as much as I love taking pictures of cosplayers and everything, going solo is a little bit tricky. This time around, I brought my tripod, but there's so many people walking around. I don't really get to, you know, fully take the tripod out and have it set somewhere so I can take a picture with these cosplayers every single time. And I did try to do it kind of solo as well, where I'm holding the tripod out. But when I do that, you don't really get to see their entire outfit, which kind of misses a lot of the details that they put into their outfits. There's also a guy walking around with this giant crocodile, and I saw him from a distance. I'm like, this guy has an inflatable crocodile. I've been seeing him standing around in these lines. I need to see who he is and what is the deal with this crocodile. Once I walked up to him, it immediately clicked. I was like, this guy is Steve Irwin, and I needed to take a picture. Steve Irwin, back in my toddler days, was my hero, and I remember a little tear. I remember the day when I learned that he passed away, right? But his spirit still lives on, be it at the zoo, with his family, or cosplayers like this. There's also this awesome Doomslayer standing right next to Iron Man. Like, the amount of details here is crazy, right? There was also Teletubbies, but they were like hoarder themed with their organs hanging out. There's a guy in a Home Depot bucket outfit. And then there's an entire row of Eggmen just kind of standing there chatting with each other. And then as I was waiting for them to, you know, get ready and, you know, get their outfits all good to go for a picture, there was a person standing in front of me who had this giant homemade Monster Hunter weapon. And I remember asking him questions like, hey, how long did it take you to make? Like, is that thing heavy? And he looked at me right in the eyes, and without hesitation, he's like, do you want to hold it? And I was like, yeah, I want to hold it. And so I grabbed it from the handle, I grabbed it from the middle, and I lifted it up. And I had it in the picture with me with these Eggmen. And looking at this like life-size Monster Hunter weapon was insane. It wasn't as heavy as you'd think, but it was so cool. He said it took him like a month and a half to create this thing. I also saw this group of cosplayers that were cosplaying as different Smash Bros characters. One of them was even dressed as Olimar, and he had a whistle attached to his helmet. And at first I thought it was just a prop, but no, his little whistle actually works.
I love that, that's so cool!
And this isn't even close to how many cosplayers I actually saw, right? There are so many pyramid heads I saw there, so many fans from Gravity Falls, all kinds of things. Any show you can think of, you'll definitely find there. And like I said, this is just one aspect of C2E2. Another aspect that's kind of like a huge part of it is Artist Alley. This is basically like a huge section that's organized alphabetically and showcases a ton of different artists. You can find everything from custom prints, you can find stickers, different pins, keychains, plushies, custom figurines, and even some artists have like really specific niches too. Like there was this one guy who created everything based on the Lilo and Stitch, or another one that was focused mainly on pugs. I even saw some amazing like Yu Yu Hakusho art that I was really tempted in picking up, as well as this like wooden cutout right here. Like how awesome and unique is that, right? But then you see the price tag and usually it's like $50 to $150. Some of them seem like they're a bit justified, right? Like I get it why it's priced like that. Whereas other ones, it's like, I wish the price was a bit cheaper because then I'd pick up not one, but like 2 posters from you. But luckily, a lot of the artists, they like to haggle, right? If you give them the deal, you know, $15 if you buy 2 of them instead of for $25 if you buy 1, right? Stuff like that. There was so much cool stuff that I wanted, even though I didn't need it. I found this awesome watercolor pieces too, but again, each of them was $30, which was a little bit too much for me. And what's awesome is I actually ended up bumping into my friends that I haven't seen for like the entire year. And so we were just kind of walking around Artist Alley and just having a hoot, and they were trying to pick up like different deals. And so Friday, there's usually a lot of people, but it's kind of still a bit chill, right? Saturday though, once that arrives, this place is entirely packed, especially when you're trying to walk around in Artist Alley. It was very hard to walk through these aisles, especially with my backpack on, right? Like, it was very tight squeeze and people were struggling just to go from one end of the section to the next. There was also a lot of booths that featured a lot of 3D printed figurines and items. I thought this was kind of funny. The dragon dog from Neverending Story was here, and his mouth opened too, which was kind of a cool little feature. And aside for comics, they also had a lot of manga. And aside for Yu Yu Hakusho and One Piece, the last two ones that I've been eyeballing everywhere is Volume 1 of the original Sailor Moon and also Volume 1 of the original Dragon Ball. Those are the last two that I want to pick up as well and maybe put them somewhere here on my shelf. Not only that, but there was also a lot of anime DVDs and Blu-rays too. But like I said, they were very pricey. I wanted the complete Sonic X collection for a very long time and on Blu-ray too. But for $60? Are you crazy? Or the Adventures of Sonic as well, $60 here. And the Sailor Moon, it wasn't even the complete, Sailor Moon show. No, it was only season 1 of Sailor Moon and also $60. It's like, god damn, nobody's gonna pay those prices for these, shows and movies, especially when you can find them online. It feels like a ripoff, right? But speaking of ripoff, let's talk about video games, right? I love video games. I always have ever since I was a toddler. I want to see video games and people selling them at these conventions. And it took me a while to actually find any booths because it's very easy to get lost in C2E2. But I did happen to find 3 different booths selling video games. And I think the first one was definitely the best that I found at this entire event. And right from the start, you can see they have a lot of rare and expensive games behind the glass. They have Rule of Rose, which very expensive game, even though I did not like it at all. They got Klonoa, they got Tomba 2, they have entire Silent Hill collection, right? And I'm like, I want all of these games in my collection, every single one of them. But how much are they, right? I walked up to the guy and Silent Hill 1 on PS1 alone, he was asking for $250. Why? That's too expensive. Are you crazy? Dude, I go to these places to pay maybe $20 or less, not $250. They also had Xenosaga Episode 3. I've been looking for Episode 3 for so long. I have Xenosaga 1 and 2, but number 3, I haven't had a chance to buy yet. And he wanted also $250 for that too. And I'm like, god damn, too expensive. The Minish Cap, he wanted $60, right? Dear lord, like, I swear. I didn't even ask what he wanted for Haunting Grounds or Rule of Rose. That was probably gonna be $500 to $1,000 right there. It makes me so angry to see these prices being so expensive with this hobby that I feel should have never gotten to that point, right? I love that people can play video games, but like, these prices are like poo-poo. I don't know how else to say it, they're toilet. They had controllers, they had Nintendo Power magazines, but again, they were expensive. I did spot Munch's Odyssey though for $10, which was the original Xbox version that I grew up playing. And I'm like, alright, I definitely want to pick this up. As well as Voodoo Vince on the original Xbox for $20. There was also Donkey Kong Country 2 on the Super Nintendo for $30 and Donkey Kong 64 on Nintendo 64 for $30. I was like, maybe I'll come back on Sunday, like the last day of C2E2, usually where prices are, much less than the first 2 days. I didn't end up picking up anything at this place. It was too expensive, even though all of these games they had on display are games I'm actually interested in playing and collecting and having here on my shelves, right? And making reviews of. But there's no way I'm spending like over $300 on one game alone. That is insane. And then another booth had mainly Japanese imports. It was very cool to see, and they were much cheaper than the US versions, but it's kind of useless for RPGs, right? If you don't speak Japanese. I ended up picking up Paper Mario on the Nintendo 64 here, and I'm thinking of replacing the ROM from the Nintendo 64 Japanese version to the US version and playing it like that. And if it's possible, then I have Paper Mario on Nintendo 64 there, so that'd be kind of cool. This year though, at C2E2, I really missed the retro console area that they used to have out on display, where you can play GameCube games, you can play Super Nintendo games, Genesis, whereas now it seems like it was all replaced mainly by like modern consoles. You know, on one hand, it's kind of cool to see like a giant screen as people are playing Tekken or Smash Bros. Ultimate, but it's also just as awesome to see that, you know, being played on these original machines from so many years ago. And I just like sitting down and just playing a random game with a random person, right? And if you're hungry at C2E2, I'd recommend bringing your own food, right? Put it in your backpack and just bring it along and eat it there whenever you're ready. If you want to buy anything like hot dogs or pizza or whatever they have there, it's going to be extremely expensive too. And there's also going to be a long line of people wanting to get food themselves. And most of the time, you're not going to find any seats anywhere to sit because everything is full, right? You might have to just sit down on the floor or against the wall or something. Because the moment you stand up from one of these seats, somebody immediately, within like 5 seconds, goes sit down. And it's understandable, right? Like, you spend these entire 3 days just walking around. Your feet are gonna hurt, you're gonna be tired, you wanna take a break. And so a lot of people are kind of, you know, they're fighting for a seat. I know for a fact that when I went to this event, I got a record on my phone that I had the most steps walked in my entire, you know, like history. And not only that, I also remember like my feet being so tired where I would just sit down for a little bit, but then I started falling asleep. But then I had to snap myself out of it, right? Because I was like, oh, I don't want to fall asleep and miss the entire day of events. No, I just want to sit here and just let my legs rest for a little bit. And so this building at C2E2 is kind of divided by different floors, right? So the main one, you know, everything's going on, all the cosplays, everything at this first floor. However, if you go up to the third and fourth floor, there's different rooms and panels going on as well. There was one time in the past where my brother and I, we sat there and we listened to Svengoolie giving a panel and, you know, answering questions and stuff. And I'm sitting there in the background with my Sonic outfit on. Whereas another section is like dedicated mainly just for a giant rave. If you want to have a, you know, party and just go crazy, this is where it's at. Like, this music is so loud, you can hear it all the way across the hall from the other side of the building. There's another time where people are just having a hoot, full on like singing like karaoke songs. They go on stage and they're just dancing and going wild, and then people in the audience are singing with them. Sometimes they're running around like the entire room, right? Just having a hoot. The only thing that was kind of hardcore is that there was like over like a 200-person waiting list for your karaoke. And so you'd be standing there for a while. But I remember last year, we kind of ended, you know, C2E2 by singing Queen's Don't Stop Me Now. And my friends went on the stage over there. They were all dancing and, you know, having a hoot, and it was awesome. However, the main panel that my friends and I went to this year was the hentai voiceover panel. And it's exactly as it sounds like. You're in this room, there's a giant projector, right, with a screen right there. And then on the other side, you have microphones, and random people from the audience, they get chosen to reenact what's going on in this hentai scene, right? And the people, they choose like all kinds of random like footage. And your voice actors, they can either follow the footage or create their own story. And I know my friends, they had their hands, you know, lifted and they're like, me, pick me, right? They wanted to do it themselves because it looks like a lot of fun. At first, I didn't want to do it either, but eventually they convinced me. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. It looks like a hoot. Looks like a lot of fun. You know, pick me too. Unfortunately, we didn't get chosen though, but I can't show this on YouTube, of course. I have to have it blurred out. But it was pretty funny. There was one guy who was pretending to be like a doctor inspecting his patient.
Just give me a full exam.
And everyone seemed to like that a lot. There was another dude who was like really getting into it, which made it really funny, even though you think you'd do the opposite. But then there was also some people who were a little rusty and didn't know what they were doing, or, you know, I just wish it was a little bit longer, right? Like the event went by like that. Like, I think it was maybe 50 minutes, but it went by in like 2 seconds. There's also this giant, like, buff dude, right? Who was barely clothed, and he was wearing this outfit from, I cannot remember what the game is, but I know his character. I've seen this character somewhere. And I didn't know this until after they told me, but he has this little business card kind of attached to his belt right by his booty cheek. And all it says on there is, "You may smack it, but only once." And so that's what they did. They slapped his booty cheek, right? And said that it was the softest and firmest cheek they have ever slapped. I wish I was there, like, you know, kind of hearing this conversation, because I would have done the same thing too. Instead, we were kind of already walking away, so I was like, all right, you know, the guy's probably busy. You know, I don't want to, you know, bruise his booty cheek with an almighty slap myself, right? And then after the main floor closed, my friends and I, we decided to, you know, head out. And we saw these guys dressed up as Tifa and Aerith, and it was awesome. I told them, I'm like, dudes, you look amazing. And then at the end of Friday, when everybody just kind of wanted to go back to their hotel room, the way that this parking and everything worked at C2E2 was kind of wild. So for example, there was like an entire section where people can pick up, you know, their rides from Uber, but at the same time, there was also taxis that were forcing themselves into these locations and pretending to be the Ubers of these random people who already picked up their order, right? The person who was directing the traffic was yelling at this guy like, "Don't stop there, keep moving, like what are you doing?" It was like a whole thing. It was crazy, like Jesus. And then we ended up going to TGI Fridays. I don't really go out to eat or go to restaurants or anything. Usually I just eat at home, but you know, since I was out here with my friends and at C2E2, I'm like, you know what? I'll just go with you guys. You probably know what you're ordering or you know what to do. I'll just follow along, right? And the moment we got there, it was a little bit rickety crickety. Like, for example, the seats, we got this like one cushion seat. And for some reason, the cushions themselves, they were like duct taped together. Like, I don't know if somebody like destroyed them or something, but they were duct taped. And so maybe that was the first sign to, you know, maybe we shouldn't go here, right? But we still gave it a chance. My friends ordered some kind of like hamburger, and so they enjoyed that. And then I got something called the $1 Million Cob. And I was like, oh, it's gonna be like a fish thing, right? Like, I love fish, like, let me have it. And they brought it in. It took maybe like 30 minutes or something to arrive. When I, you know, went to bite into my fish, you know, just to enjoy it and be like, oh, finally, I'm hungry, I need food. I realized, I was like, wait a second, this isn't fish, this is chicken. My fish tastes like chicken. And I didn't say anything, right? Because, you know, everyone seemed to just kind of want to go home already, like finish their food and leave. So I just kind of ate my stuff and then, you know, I just left. You know, they got kind of upset. They're like, how, you know, the service here, you know, is took a long time. They give you the wrong order. Like, we're never coming back to this place. They got duct tape on the seats. Then I realized, I looked it up like later. I was like, $1 Million Cod. It was actually COBB, Cob, which is some kind of chicken thing. I thought it was a fish, but it was a chicken, so I got no clue anymore. After that, we went to this pub called Timothy O'Toole's. I'm not really a fan of pubs. I don't really go to bars or anything like that. But I had a friend. This was his exact name. Like, first name and last name. I wonder if he owns this restaurant or something. We did go inside. They required a ID, right? Like, they had to check our ID so we can get in there. We ordered this drink called the Holy Water. It was some kind of like sweet drink and it had like a cherry inside too. I liked it a lot. I also ordered some orange chicken and like salad, and I liked it a lot. It was very tasty. And then afterwards, my friends also got this ice cream plate thing to share. But by then, nobody wanted any, right? Like, they were all full and everything. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, I didn't eat anything all day, right? I'm gonna enjoy this ice cream. I don't want it to go to waste. So I'm going in, just having a hoot. The only thing that was hogwash though, it does get a little bit expensive, right? Especially in the moment if you don't realize that. So I ended up paying, I think like $70 in total for like the 2 days of meals. which doesn't sound like a lot, but like to me, that's a lot. That is a lot of money for food, like geez. But it is what it is. I had a spiffy time and you know, I do it again in a heartbeat. And then when we finished, like at the pub, I think it was already around like 2:30 a.m. or something. My friends and I were talking, we're like, all right, Jacob, are you gonna take the bus? Are you gonna stay here with us? You can stay if you want. I'm all sweaty from C2E2, right? My back is all sweaty. I don't have any shirts. I wanna take a shower. And they're like, oh, that's fine. Like, let's go. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll just hang out with you guys. And they're like, yeah. So they let me, you know, they let me sleep on their little couch. And then afterwards, we were just hanging out at their hotel. They showed me what their view looks like. It was very hard to see because it was night, right? So I couldn't really see anything. It was too dark. But I was like, wow, you know, what a nice view of these very reflective windows of these buildings. And when we woke up on that Sunday, it does look pretty, right? Like you can see the building and the architecture of Chicago, which is really nice. And I love downtown, right? Like I love being here and it's just kind of a cool view. It would have been really nice if I was recording this video with that view behind me, right? That would have been cool, but there was no time for that. They had to get ready. Once we arrived at C2E2 on Sunday, I helped my friends get their luggage into their car, which was an entire journey in itself. We had to travel through the entire like convention, go down the elevator, keep going like through people, and eventually made it to the parking lot. It was like a huge maze, but somehow we got there. We left all of their stuff in there. And like I said, Sunday is usually the day where you get the steal the deals at C2E2, where vendors might have like half off deals to clear inventory because they don't want to be taking that stuff back home with them. And so my friends were doing their final shopping based on all the things that they scouted out the previous days. I mostly just kind of followed them around, recording some last few footage, different little things to use as B-roll for this video. But I was interested in seeing like if those people who were selling the video games, if they went down in price. And the show floor was definitely a lot less crowded on Sunday as people were already leaving, or maybe they were only at C2E2 for one day, right? So it wasn't as much people as Saturday. Like Saturday was crazy. So we mainly just kind of walked around, right? They were shopping, I was getting footage, and that's kind of how Sunday went. It felt like Sunday, maybe we arrived a little bit later, but it also felt like Sunday went by really fast. Eventually, we got the call, right? Like the giant speaker saying C2E2 2025 is officially over. It's finished. Thank you for stopping by. Come again next year, right? When tickets are available. Thanks for hanging out, everyone. Toodaloo. And then after they finished shopping, we went back to the car, said our farewells, of course, and hope to see each other again soon. By the time I like wrote down all the notes and rewatched the footage, it was already like maybe 2 a.m. or something, so I was completely tired. I did try to record this video while I was at my brother's apartment. However, as you can see here, right, even though the footage looks nice, I was completely tired. Imagine this video, except in this tone instead. So every single year, there's a convention that happens in Chicago called C2E2. And it's an awesome event that lasts for 3 days. So I was like, you know what? I can't do this. I gotta go to sleep. I can't force myself to record a video when I can barely speak. Overall, C2E2 2025 was an awesome time. As always, of course. Seeing all the different cosplayers and the fan enthusiasm, taking pictures with everyone, and being there with my friends too. I love every single part of it, right? I got a little, you know, cheesy lanyard here. I got a new ring. I have some few cheesy like stickers and Pokemon cards and whatnot. A few Nintendo 64 games here. Even though they're Japanese, maybe I can find a way to dump the ROMs and exchange them for the English versions. I also have these pins right here. Majora's Mask pin I have on my hat. And this little flower. Anyways, ladies and turds, if you're interested in seeing all the footage I have gathered from C2E2 2025, then take a yonder at the Jacob72 VOD channel, and I've uploaded the entire thing. It's about 3 hours long, but it's all there. I also, in the previous years, also have, you know, the previous C2E2s as well on the VOD channel or my Jacob72 channel. With that said though, ladies and turds, there's only one thing left to do. I hope you enjoyed my lovely video here on C2E2 2025. If you go next year, feel free to tell me what conventions you've been to, what costumes you'd like to wear, and what stuff you'd like to buy as well. With that said, I hope you all enjoyed this lovely video, and I'll see you on another lovely video. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.